I love Plateau State.
I love Plateau State because environment is welcoming, is friendly. I also love Plateau State because I grew up in Plateau State, so that natural love will definitely flow.
Actually, the weather condition in the Plateau is very nice because, as you can all see, people from neighboring states normally come here because of our weather. And the people of Plateau are very nice people, friendly, kind.
I love Plateau State because of the weather condition, and it makes it possible for a lot of vegetables and other kinds of fruits to be grown, and it gives me a lot of I have varieties to pick from. I think I love that.
I love Plateau State because I was born in Plateau State, and then I love Plateau State again because they have good weather, the land is fertile for agriculture, and then they have nice and friendly people, and that makes me feel home.
Plateau, the beautiful, is a tourist delight. The wildlife park, the Aso Falls, and others like it, the Naraguta Leather Works. Plateau, indeed, the home of peace and tourism. It be worth your while visiting the Plateau.
Federal Executive Council approves completion of Kaduna Power Plant.
The 21-man Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative inaugurated.
And House of Representatives resolves to investigate extrajudicial killings in Nigeria.
And today on Good Morning Nigeria, we focus on the National Judicial Policy Plus NTA's Science and Innovation Expo 2016.
All right, arrest of some judicial officers by the DSS over the allegations of corrupt practices generated quite a lot of debate and is still generating that in the country.
All right, Claire, now some analysts describe the arrest as a welcome development, while others believe that it's an affront on the doctrine of separation of powers as enshrined in the 1999 Constitution as amended.
Indeed, Kingsley, but as the debate on the legality or otherwise of the action continues, the National Judicial Council, NJC, headed by Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mahmood Mohammed, unveiled a new national judicial policy.
Well, the policy is seen as part of efforts by the NJC to curb corruption and also enforce discipline in the judiciary. And as we all know from recent reports, allegations of corruption have indeed tarnished the image, as it were, of the judicial arm of government.
All right, now the NJC, of course, who appear to have been disturbed over the ugly development, was quoted to have said that the greatest single menace that challenges the justice system in Nigeria today is corruption. Now, corruption has serious implications for both the rule of law and access to justice and must be fought both institutionally and individually.
So, how will the new national judicial policy be used, as it were, to tackle corruption effectively in the judicial arm of government? In particular, to what extent would some of the aspects of the policy, such as assets declaration by judicial officers participating in sensitive and highly visible trials before and after their assignments, curb corrupt tendency amongst judicial officers?
Well, we have quite a number of questions, Kingsley, but that's not the only issue, of course, for our discussion on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I'm sure that everyone knows that the federal government is championing diversification agenda through many sectors. And of course, we know agriculture, but science and technology is one of those areas that the federal government is looking into.
That's right, Clay. And the Nigerian Television Authority, that's the station you're watching right now, in line with its social responsibility, has, over the last 10 years, been holding an annual Science and Innovation Expo to promote scientific and technological ingenuity among students, pupils, of course, in primary and post-primary institutions across the country.
All right. Now, the question we'll be asking, with regards to this event is, has the Expo really achieved its set objectives, of course, in the last decade of its introduction? And what lie ahead for the Expo? That's what we shall also be looking at on today's edition of the program. So it's a two-legged program, as Kingsley would say. I am Claire Delabu Abdul-Razak once again. It's our pleasure to welcome you onto the program. It's Thursday.
All right, and I'm Kingsley Osadulo. I join Clay in also welcoming you to this edition of the program, in the course of which we shall have our usual regular companion segments, including newspaper review, arts and entertainment, business, and others. In the meantime, we're going over to the newsroom now, and our guide this morning is Lydia Bassi. Hi, Lydia.
Good morning, Kingsley. Welcome to the News Nigeria. The Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing has been given the go-ahead to ensure the completion of Kaduna Power Plant with a view to adding 215 megawatts of electricity to the national grid. The Minister Babatunde Rajeev Fashola announced government's approval while briefing newsmen after the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. He said with the approval, the procurement and implementation defects in respect of the project started in 2009, as well as the lack of budget support, will now be fully addressed.
We are now in a position that we can complete this program and project by next year and add 215 megawatts of power to the grid, and particularly dedicate some of that power to Kudenda and Kaduna to support the industrial complex there. The second project was the construction of the substation to evacuate power from the Gurara hydroelectric power plant, phase 1, to evacuate 40 megawatts of power there. And again, there had to be extra work done here in order to connect that original evacuation plan into Kaduna now, and also to enable it interconnect to Mando transmission substation.
The council was also briefed by the Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, on the progress of the rollout plan of the National Social Investment Program, for which 500 billion naira was set aside in the 2016 budget. A 21-man presidential committee on the Northeast Initiative has been inaugurated with a mandate to take urgent remedial measures to alleviate the conditions of the internally displaced persons in the region. President Muhammadu Buhari, who performed the ceremony, said the committee, which will be the apex coordinating body for all interventions in the region, is charged with the responsibility of developing a strategy and implementation framework for the rebuilding the Northeast.
While having great trust and confidence in the team of General T.Y. Danjuma, I urge them to approach their task with dedication, commitment, accountability, and transparency. The committee should take a quick look at the condition of the IDPs and take urgent remedial measures to alleviate these conditions.
The chairman of the committee, General Theophilus Danjuma, promised that members will perform their coordinating responsibility with professionalism, transparency, and accountability. A total of 30 bills were scheduled for consideration at Senate plenary on Wednesday. The bills range from those of an act to provide effective administration to that of reenactment of the Prison Act.
The unlawful detention of persons without bail and the issues of prison decongestion has attained an alarming and disheartening dimension.
When this bill is passed, it will bring about the establishment of a prison services that will improve the general welfare situation.
This bill attempts to provide solution by ensuring that prison authorities provide special accommodation to meet prenatal and postnatal needs of pregnant inmates.
Nigerian prisons simply upgrade criminals from what brought them into that prison to what they were not before.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has resolved to investigate extrajudicial killings in Nigeria. This resolution follows the murder of former Shooting Star Sports Club player Izu Joseph in Bayelsa State. The House has also invited the Inspector General of Police as part of its investigation into the killings of the late footballer.
To invite the Inspector General and any other culpable person to appear before the House Committees on Police Affairs and Human Rights to give insight to these extrajudicial killings.
So make sure that those who are responsible for this act are properly investigated and brought to book.
The people we intend to protect are being harmed, and we fold our hand. And this is a house of justice. This is a house of representative of the people.
Now to the environment. The need for capacity development to deal with challenges presented by oil spills in the marine environment has again been emphasized. Minister of Environment Amina Mohammed reiterated this in a message to the National Workshop on Oil Spill Trajectory Modeling in Marine Environment, organized by National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency.
With this kind of simulation, you'll be able to know if there's a creek in front. You're able to predict if that oil will enter the creek and then go into communities and spoil their goods.
All of these different things, along with various organisations from around the world that are developing these models in tandem with us, is helping us just continue to improve our accuracy in forecasting what's going to happen in an oil spill.
Young investors from different parts of the country continue with the expos of their inventions at this year's NTA ETV exhibition ongoing at NTA headquarters in Abuja. The Director General of NTA, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, took time off to go around the exhibition.
For leaking information to Boko Haram, and authorities screened troops' phones to fish out culprits. That's on page 7 in greater detail. We also have there on the front page $15 million. Patients seeks 200 million naira damages from banks. That's on 12. And reps summon IG over alleged extrajudicial killings. That's on page 14.
Yes, that's usually referred to by the former First Lady, Mrs. Patience Jonathan, is a suit for enforcement of fundamental rights, and she's demanding 200 million for that. The suit was filed against the EFCC and the Sky Bank for freezing 4 accounts. EFCC had placed a no debit order on the 4 accounts already operated by one Waripamo Owe Dudafa. There was a report, however, that the First Lady claimed that the accounts belonged to her. The Nigerian Army has said that 30 alleged collaborators of Boko Haram have been arrested, and among them are 4 soldiers, which include a captain and a major, 2 policemen, other vigilantes, and other civilians. They also say that a sizable number of soldiers that were declared missing in action have actually returned back to base. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Army says it has a task before it, and that task is anyone held by the Boko Haram must be rescued, including the rest of the Chibok girls. The commander of the theater of Lafia Dole, Major General Loki Rabo, says that the theater is engaged in an operation that is totally to uproot the terrorists out from the area. There is another human interest story that I think we want to draw our attention to. First, is a part of a school building collapsed at Kadu Estate yesterday and killed a 4-year-old people and injured 2 others. The people were on a lunch break and they were sitting on the wall to have their lunch. Unfortunately, the building collapsed. And the FCT Advanced Education Director, Ayuba Didam, says that that school, it was neither registered nor accredited. He says it is among 556 schools that are illegal, that have been shut by the FCTA, but the owners have illegally reopened them. What is sad development?
Yeah, very, very sad development, Bayo. We hope the authorities will follow up accordingly to check out what happened. Just before we wrap up newspaper review segment, let's go to the sign language, the section of Daily Trust, page 29. There's a sign language there. This one is taken from Japan. Says, "You are my love, my angle. Don't treat me like potato." Is it angle or my angel? Well, that does it for our newspaper review segment today. We'd like to thank Bayo Toyebi. Bayo, I hope you have an angel, not an angle at home.
Potato. Thank you.
All right. Of course, that does it for newspaper review. We'll take a short break. When we come back, of course, you know, our usual style, we'll start off our conversation. Do stay with us.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain, fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, Ogerula. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Well, in recent weeks, the judiciary has come under increased public scrutiny following the arrest of some judicial officers by men and officers also of the DSS, and this on grounds of alleged corruption. Now, also recently, the National Judicial Council came up with a new national policy on the judiciary. The policy contains clear provisions showing the judiciary's commitment to transparency and accountability, according to some observers. As a prompt for our conversation this morning, we join our correspondent, Femi Okoewo, for details of what's going on in the judiciary.
The National Judicial Council, the body in charge of appointments, discipline, and removal of judges in Nigeria, was set up by Section 153 of the 1999 Constitution. Under the 1979 Constitution, the judiciary was more or less under the direct control of the executive. But in the spirit of separation of powers, and in order to insulate the third arm of government from the whims and caprices of external influence, drafters of the current constitution created the National Judicial Council, headed by the Chief Justice of Nigeria. And since its inaugural meeting in April 2000, the NJC has come up with guidelines and rules of appointments of judicial officers, judicial discipline regulations, and code of conduct for judicial officers. So, if all these guides existed, why then a national judicial policy?
The national judicial policy recognizes that the greatest and most damaging challenge to administration of justice is corruption, and that tackling this challenge must go beyond mere exhortation and sentiments.
Really, it is not the contents of the judicial policy that makes for good adjudication. It may set the guideline, but it is the quality of those who occupy and man the position and their willingness to adhere to the rules. And so, to ensure that they adhere to the rules, then you must have something beyond policy. Like if you call the policy a carrot, then you must have a stick with which to use to enforce it.
It has been severally said that the judiciary is the only arm of government that has a self-cleansing mechanism for its erring members. The problem is whether its pace is good enough to fight corruption in a country that is in a hurry to deal with corruption in any arm of its government.
One would be hard put to appreciate what role that ethics committee is going to play. Is it to police or to enforce the judicial policy? These are new innovations.
The National Judicial Council says as the bastion of rule of law and fair hearing, it should be the last to justify dispensing of these key processes on the platform of quick results. Everywhere in the world, people have come to accept that the wheel of justice grinds slowly. But whether it actually grinds surely is always in contention. I suppose that is the issue in Nigeria today, that the wheel of justice grinds slowly but surely.
All right, many thanks to you, Femi Okewu, for that background. Of course, just to add that you can, of course, follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle, of course, will be on your screen in a short while. Let me quickly introduce our panel of course, discussion this morning, beginning with Chief Adegboyega Awomolo. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria, a private legal practitioner, and a life venture. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Good morning.
We also have with us in Abuja studio, Awa Kalu is a senior advocate of Nigeria as well, former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Abia State. He's also former Special Assistant to the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. We welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then still with us here in the Abuja studios, we have Mr. Emmanuel Omubiko, who is National Coordinator of Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria, as well as a former Federal Commissioner serving in the National Human Rights Commission. Mr. Omubiko, a pleasure to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, and then from our Lagos studios, we have another legal practitioner, Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze. Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze, I'd like to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, thank you.
All right, gentlemen.
Very interesting. That leaves just me, Kingsley. But at least I can become a learned person by association today.
Not today, by the way. Not today. Not today.
All right. Yes. All right. Let's go.
All right. Well, gentlemen, the issue before us has to do with what some observers believe would be the reaction of the NJC to what's going on in the judiciary, as well as public perception of certain judicial officers. So we have the National Judicial Policy. It's been quite a while in the making, but of course, the touchstone for what we have seen was indicated by the chair of the NJC itself, who is the Chief Justice of the Federation. First, the policy deals with a wide variety of issues. Let's begin by taking your comments. Do the policy issues addressed by what we have seen now, is it likely to be an elixir against public perception of what we are seeing also in the judiciary? Let's begin with Senior Advocate Awakalo.
Very well. I think that when you have a problem, you find a means of dealing with it. But contrary to what so many people think, the judicial policy was not designed or fashioned after the events that have shocked all of us. I think that the policy had already been put in place, but was now presented to the public after what has happened. But it's a policy, and as we go along, the policy will fine-tune itself. Those who are affected by the policy will react and set themselves in such a condition that things will change. I believe that stability will return to the judicial arm of government. And when I mean stability, I mean the totality of the conditions for very good performance by judicial officers.
All right, thanks. I will come back to you to deal with specifics. Let's also get the overview of Senior Advocate Awomolo. What do you think of the new judicial policy?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to know what is judiciary and what is the basis for judicial policy. Under the 1999 Constitution, we have three arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The executive is headed by the president, who is the chief executive. He is an elected member of a political party who comes with manifestos and programs, but he's governed by rules and bureaucracy. Secondly, you have the legislature headed by also an elected member of a political party. Then we have the judiciary. You see, when we are talking of policy, we are talking of fundamental principles and the objective for managing the affairs of the judiciary. It is not a law by itself, but it is a guideline to how the human and material resources of judiciary, they are to be managed. If we realize that judiciary, as we inherited from the British, they are essentially on custom, tradition, and conventions. And, these tradition, conventions are what the Englishman calls their heritage, their priceless heritage. In other words, what is the comportment of a judge? What is the mode of appointment? What is the mode of discipline? And all these policies have their individual guidelines and rules. So take, for example, you are talking of appointment. There are rules for appointment of judicial officers. If you are talking of discipline, there are rules for discipline of judicial officers. So it's a broad outline of how the judiciary is to be managed, it comes from the idea, the thinking of the leadership of the judiciary.
All right, thank you very much, San. Let me quickly again, for those who have not seen the policy copy or copy of the policy, this is it. It's about a 29-page document, and it deals with issues like has been said, issues of appointment, issues of discipline, and of course, code of conduct for both staff of the judiciary. That's the pamphlet. But again, let me go to Lagos before I come back to Comrade Donbiko. Let me talk to Mr. Chukwu Emeka is in Lagos. You've seen this copy. I'm sure it's not new to you, but is it the right time for it to have, come, or do you can we deduce any logical conclusion from, the launch of this document at this point in time?
Thank you very much. I think the national judicial policy has always been with us. It's not new. The current one was said to have been made in April, although just revealed to the media on Monday, the 24th of October. But it is not new. Prior to the making of that of April, we have always had the national judicial policy. On 30th September 2013, the then Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Merriam, made a national judicial policy. In 2014, we also had a national judicial disciplinary policy. And it has always been made pursuant to Section 3, subsection 2 of the National Judicial Institute Act, Cap N55 Laws of the Federation 2004. So it is not new. The fact that many Nigerians are becoming aware of it now does not mean that we are just having a national judicial policy. It has always been with us for some time, but the regularity of the provisions addressing the issues at stake, I think that is why where the NJC has decided to, we wouldn't waste time. Let's make the people understand that we even have a policy. It's not a rudderless house, that there is no policy to guide us. So I think what has happened is a revelation of the policy, not just making the policy. We have always had a national judicial policy, at least the last one, 2013, 2014, in bits, depending on whether it is code of conduct, whether it is discipline, whether it is performance rating, whether it is appointment, whether it is case flow management, and administration. So that is it. So it is not new. It is not new.
Mr. Chukwemeka Eze, thank you. It is not new. Back to our studio here in Abuja. Comrade Emmanuel Onbiko, do you think it's coincidental? He said it's not new. Can we draw any, correlation between the allegations, controversy generated by the allegations, and the launch of this national policy at this point in time?
Thank you very much. I think the senior lawyers, the lawyers have spoken, and I think I agree with what they have said, but there is a lacuna in all of this. If the hierarchy of the nation's judiciary have suddenly woken up from slumber and discovered that they need to enlighten Nigerians on the existence of an extant body of rules governing the judges, the judiciary, I think it's not a very wise decision. That is always what some of us in the media have been talking about. Some of us in the media and in the mainstream civil society, community in this country. You need to liberalize information. You need to democratize information. You need to bring the media practitioners into most of the things you do. Communicate properly to Nigerians, because the judiciary, just like what Chief Awomola Isen has just said, is a strategic arm of government that is created by the Constitution. And the Constitution, if you look at the beginning parts of the Constitution recognizes that the people of Nigeria are the owners of the sovereignty of this country. We are the owners of this country. And those who hold their respective positions in those three arms of government, who are, especially those who are elected, they have their loyalty, they draw their legitimacy from the people. So they have to communicate. That's been said. I think there is a very critical aspect of the revelation that has just come out from this policy, judicial policy, which some of us are not too happy about. The judiciary cannot ban the media. You cannot gag the media. You cannot tell the media that the media should not publish petitions that are authored against serving judicial officers. You must publicize the petitions so that Nigerians can debate the merits or the demerits. You cannot, you can't hide something under the carpet, and you think Nigerians this opaqueness that manifests itself in the way and manner the judiciary is run has to be broken down. And that is the reason why most of these controversies that have arisen from the arrest of judges, which I also have we have our position on that. The propriety otherwise of the action that was taken by the DSS, the appropriate nature, are they the right agency to even embark on that? So these are issues. But I think regarding the judicial policy, I agree that it has been there. At least as a journalist that covered the court for about 7 years, I'm aware that you cannot even have a house, even no family in this country can exist if there are no rules, if the father or the mother cannot bring out a rule. So the judiciary the judiciary is right to publish their in-house rules, but they are wrong if they want to stop another strategic sector of this country, this society, from doing their work, which is recognized in the Constitution. Section 22 of the Constitution gives the mandate of informing, entertaining, educating Nigerians to media workers, and that cannot be taken away because it's a constitutional matter. You cannot just bring up something you call policy, and you think it will override a constitutional provision. It's not possible.
All right, Mr. Emmanuel Owunbiko, thank you very much there for your comments. You have already broken into the other segment of our discussion, which has to do with an examination of some of the key provisions of the National Judicial Policy. And we'll be taking on that now, including the treatment of petitions before the NJC for disciplinary actions against any judicial officer who is alleged to have done any wrong. So let's begin to tackle that. Again, SAN Awa Kalu. What's your reaction to this? A policy of this nature obviously has to do with self-regulation. Self-regulation is like a soft law, but it's not that tangent with what you have already in the Constitutional Code of Conduct for public officers, and other extant rules and regulations. But Owunbiko is raising a point that the attempt to, as it were, screen off the media while a petition is pending or being considered by a disciplinary body is in tension with another provision of the Constitution. And yet, there is a proviso to what we have in the policy as to the rationale for all of this. But let's get your take.
Very well. If you look at the situation holistically, you would see that the same Constitution that Mr. Owunbiko is referring to grants a presumption of innocence in favor of a person who is even charged with a criminal offense. We are not talking about somebody who is in service and you are making an allegation, even of a pedestrian type. If an allegation is concrete, if you put it in the public domain, it compounds it drives the allegation itself. It does not enable those who are supposed to investigate or take action any level of objectivity. That is why trial in the media has been forbidden in conservative climes. Let us agree that the public is entitled to be informed, but that information must on its own be convincing. And if you throw an allegation at somebody, he has not reacted, and you now put it in the public domain, a lot of things can go wrong. And if we then revisit the circumstances we have found ourselves in the past 3 weeks, you get that point very clearly. You invade somebody's house very late in the night, you publish the following morning what you have recovered. 3 weeks thereafter, there is no single charge in any court. But the public have taken their position. Individuals are debating. This judge is very corrupt, that one is very corrupt, and we are thinking and talking about a very sensitive arm of government. Politicians who inhabit the executive branch or who inhabit the legislative branch can afford to judge with journalists. But unfortunately, the most conservative and sensitive arm of government is the judiciary. Judges are even forbidden from engaging in public disputation as to whether you are guilty or not. So we have to bear that in mind when we look at the policy as amounting to gagging or not. For me, it's not a gag. It's simply a small traffic jam.
Okay, thank
Wait until we show you something.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me go over to Chief Aomolo. Chief Aomolo, the specific portion of the policy that deals with this issue of, whether or not it's a press gag, it's 224 to 229. But I'd just like to read out two of the, The first one, 224, says, it shall be the policy of the judiciary on complaints that allegations of misconduct against judicial officers or employees of the judiciary shall not be leaked or published in the media. And the 225 goes on to say that in such a case where complaints or allegations against judicial officers and court employees are submitted for investigation, the complainant or complainants shall be made to give an undertaking not to do anything to prejudice investigation or actions that may be taken. If that is not press gag, what is press gag?
Let me again take off from where Professor Awakalu ended his submission or his exposition. You see, the judiciary has got some traditions, values, which makes it unique. Take, for example, for many years, many people may not even know who the Chief Justice was until you see him. He doesn't go to public functions. He doesn't relate. Most judges when I was a young man, when we see judges coming, it's as if we are seeing a masquerade coming and we run away. Even when I became a lawyer in 1978, when we see judges coming on the corridor, we try and avoid meeting the judge on the corridor. That's the kind of reverence. So when you look at the reverence that judiciary ought and should be respected in a civilized society, you'll find that an allegation against the judge is a very grave one. And in this country, our experience has shown that...
And the public is not entitled to hear about it?
Just a minute. When we are talking of liberality of information, we are talking of sensitive allegations against sensitive society. Take, for example, if you look at some of the allegations made in press or in newspapers, there are allegations not necessarily of corruption, but there are allegations, they gave judgment, and this judgment, in my view, is perverse. The regulations is made to protect both the complainant and the person against whom is complained against. And the truth is that if you look at what has been happening since 7th of October, the whole country is in turmoil. We have 93 million, we have so many billions, you have so much. If there was no such revelation, the society would be at peace, and the investigators will be able to conduct their investigation thoroughly. Yesterday I saw a crowd of hired people in front of Supreme Court. It has never happened. And that's the kind of thing the NJC is trying to avoid. If you say this judge today is corrupt and you put it in the press, and eventually it is found out to be frivolous, another time, another one. We are a country where people have professional petition writers. They write one today against Judge A, tomorrow another one against Judge A week's time against Judge J, in 3 weeks' time or in a month's time, there are 3 or 4 in the press against a particular judge. That judge has lost his credibility. He has lost his dignity. And when you take dignity, honor, and integrity from the judiciary is finished. And let me say it, judiciary is one arm of government whose functionality, whose existence depends on the people's trust and confidence. Once you breach that confidence, or once you desecrate that confidence, judiciary is finished. We are not talking of ordinary people. We are talking of people who sit in judgment over their fellow human beings. They are like God on earth. How many people can go and say to the press, my bishop dipped his hand into offering bag this today. To another week, my bishop dipped his hand into offering bag. Or my imam took away offering from the mosque. You know, because we need to look at this issue. Judges are human beings. You know, judges are human beings, but we need to look at the sensitivity and the objectivity in dealing with them.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Leonard, Senior Advocate, thank you very much. You asked a rhetorical question. What happens if such an allegation is made against the clergy? I'm sure our viewers will have their own reaction, whether the congregation will empty out of the place of worship or otherwise. Let's return to Lagos. Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze, what's your take on the current item that the guests are talking about? Do you find any tension between Chapter 4, which talks about fundamental rights as well as freedom of the media, as well as now the policy requirement of non-publication of a petition while under investigation by the NJC or some other body so designated?
Thank you. This matter is a very sensitive one, and I beg my learned sons to forgive me. I differ a bit with their position, not in terms of the culture of respecting the judiciary. Every lawyer agrees with that. But the drafting of that policy, as it relates to the paragraphs in focus, once you make a direct legislation against the media, it is regarded in media circles, in media law, as gagging. There is a way the National Judicial Council could have done the drafting to avoid coming into collision with the media. Because if we read further, that provision says that if it is discovered that it has been leaked and connected, maybe the complainant is connected with the leaking, then they will suspend or stop further investigations. So if we followed the policy that way, it means that the person complained against can even leak it out. And when it is leaked out, the person complained against will come and say the complainant has leaked it. Therefore, that will be the end of the investigation. So I think we shouldn't take it up to that level. Definitely the judiciary ought to be protected, and there ought to be rules, there ought to be policies, guidelines, ensuring that our secrets remain secret until we decide to make it open. Perhaps the policy should have added that all official information should proceed from maybe the Secretary of the National Judicial Council, so that the media will have a connecting point. Because if you draft such a policy, you don't give the media a connecting point. What you end up doing is creating room for rumor. And we know that under Section 22 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, the media has been charged with the position to guard, to hold the government accountable. And the government includes the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. How can the press hold the government accountable? If it is denied of necessary information, it needs to put the judiciary in check. So, as the fourth estate of the realm, it is better that none of the other realms, the executive, judiciary, and legislature, should make rules that we ordinarily gag the press. Rather, they should leave an outlet whereby the press will have access and inform the public about the activities of that organization. Once that organization begins to address the press directly, the press will regard it as gagging, and it had never worked from the history of this country. From the colonial times, the press had always had a way of bringing information to the public, even under Decree 4 of the current president when he was a military ruler. Despite the imprisonment of 2 journalists, didn't stop the press. So we should not take any step that we directly gag the press. That's my position.
All right, Mr. Chukwuemeka Eze, well, thank you very much for your reaction. But earlier, SAN, our Kalu also referenced the presumption of innocence, which is part and parcel of Chapter 4 of our 1999 Constitution as amended. Now, how would you respond to the point being made with regard to the prejudicial likely prejudicial impact of media trial, as we have seen in recent examples, against the publication of a petition which is before a disciplinary body?
In any case, it is a simple matter. Those who write frivolous petitions, there should be the Frivolous Petitions Act. Besides, even without that act, we have the provision in our criminal code. If you give false information to the police, you can be charged. People have not been charged because the prosecutorial authorities have refused to invoke the provisions of the law. So if people discover they will be charged, definitely that will minimize frivolous petitions. As for presumption of innocence, members of the judiciary should live above board. If they live above board, you discover that when people write frivolous petitions and they are published, Nigerians will hardly believe them. Nigerians begin to believe some of these things. If you like, don't even publish them. Once there is perception, perception takes 9/10 of the whole calculation. So the best thing is for the judiciary to live above board. The presumption of innocence is applied across the board. Members of the executive are charged to court. These things are published in the press. Members of the legislature, they are charged to court. They are published in the press. In respect of the judiciary can organize a way of releasing information. I am not in support of leaking information to the media. But when you have closed that shop, when you have closed that process, open another door that the media will use in getting information to inform Nigerians. Because if you close a door, you don't open another one, the media will see it as gagging, and it is difficult to win a war against the media. It is very, very difficult. So presumption of innocence is certainly part of our law, but in its application, we should ensure, if we assure the media that at the end of the investigation, it will be published, the media will wait. But if you don't tell the media that you will publish, and you just say don't leak, and you don't include that it will be published, the media will be prognosing, and any little thing they get, they publish, whether true or not, because the wheel of justice, the wheel of the society must continue to roll, head or tail. And that is why there should be a balancing act between the presumption of innocence and the role of media as prescribed under Section 22 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chukwemeka Eze, for your position. And let me again come back to Abuja. Comrade Downbiko, you raised this issue, and I think this is an aspect of the policy, that will be talked about for some time, and probably if it's not trashed, properly, might take the shine off the good work that has been done in this policy. So I'd like to ask you, how do we relate this aspect of the policy with the FYB, with the FY Act? Exactly. Because a section of it, though, excludes, makes some exclusivity, of information, but it also says that, look, that information, the injury, that arises from such information must not outweigh the injury that will be done to the public, by issues of corruption. By the time you prevent the media from accessing information on corrupt, judicial officers, what does that amount to?
Yeah, I think just like what the lawyer from the Lagos angle of this program has just said, it's very practically impossible to successfully stop the media from accessing information. It's even better for the judiciary. Just like, let me even commend the hierarchy of the National Judicial Commission, Council, and even the Chief Justice of Nigeria. In those days, it was almost impossible to hear that the Chief Justice of Nigeria has a special advisor on media. Now you have that office. The NJC also has a directorate of information, headed by one of you, a former NTA staff, Soji. And now you are bringing up a rule to say the media practitioners should not do their work. It's not going to work. Let me tell you, what is going to create? You're going to create a Nigerian WikiLeaks. The Americans try to hide certain things, and this Assange as a way of, whether you can hack into the system or whatever, to get those classified information declassified. You cannot have a democracy without freedom of expression. The moment you operate a democracy and you said, the media, please wait there, let us finish what we're discussing, then we will tell you what we have discussed. It's not going to work. I think since the NJC has a Directorate of Information, what they need to do is to discard that provision of the National Judicial Policy and see how it can be streamlined and effectively enforced. Because the danger is that, just like what a subsection of that provision said, if the information is leaked, it will lead to a termination of a petition that is pending against a judicial officer. We think this is completely unconstitutional, this is undemocratic, this is unacceptable, this is illegal. It is not even today that the issue of the credibility crisis started. Even right from the time that most of us were young, were in secondary school, when Fela was even sentenced over a trumped-up charge, several things have happened. I think the judiciary should not go into any unnecessary, any needless battle with the media. They should confront the challenge that all of us are facing, which is corruption. And it's not limited to the judiciary. Corruption is not just among the judicial officers. Corruption is like, just like what I read in the papers, that the vice president said, that corruption has arrived in all the three arms of government. And Senator Shehu Sani also said corruption has become democratized in all facets of our political life.
Mr. Awobiko, thank you very much. And by the way, I mean, for historical purposes, I'm sure we all recall the full title of Decree 4. It was Public Officers Protection Against False Accusation, Decree number 4 of 1984. It was repealed in 1985, and there was also Decree 2. I'm just wondering, you pursue this point about the imperative of Section 32 trumping whatever provision there is now in the National Judicial Policy. What would be your attitude to petitions against civil servants who are still in service and who are alleged to have either had their hands in the till or otherwise?
Yes, thank you. The reason why the wheel of progress in this country seems to be grinding to a halt is because of corruption. Either it is bureaucratic corruption, either it's political corruption, either it's corruption in the judiciary. And I think if information are dished out, there is this popular doctrine that is very effective in fighting corruption, which is naming and shaming. If a person is known to have colluded to undermine a process, whether the person is a civil servant, whether the person is a judicial officer, whether the person is even a journalist, whether the person is even in the civil society community, just like the lawyer, the civil advocate said, which I think I completely condemn, the aspect of hiring people from Area 1 or from some funny places in Nyanya and the rest of them to go to the Supreme Court premises to go and disturb their peace in the name of protest. These things are very unnecessary. When you hire a crowd, to harass alleged people who have been alleged to have collected bribes that have not been tried. We are completely against media trial. In fact, for the past several years, we have campaigned vigorously against even the police parading suspects before the media, before the thing gets to court. We think it's even completely unconstitutional. But our take is that you cannot stop the media from at least bringing it to the Nigerians. Let Nigerians even debate. Nigerians have the right to participate in the way and manner that their country is governed. You understand? You cannot tell me that you have a particular regulation that says if Mr. A commits an offense, because he's a human being, he has his imperfections. Those who are in the judiciary were once in the larger society before they were selected from being ordinary lawyers in the courtrooms to elevate them to the rank of the Temple of Justice. That you're in the Temple of Justice does not make you a god. I don't agree that any judicial officer is a god. It's not.
Okay.
In fact, not even the Pope is God.
Comrade Ambiko, thank you, but we must move on to the other aspects of the policy. And again, let me come to Senior Advocate Awa Kalu. One complaint with the judiciary is the slow dispensation of justice. Is there any aspect of this policy that addresses that?
Very well, but we need to first understand that when you talk about slow dispensation of justice, it doesn't just come from the judges. A judge comes to court, is willing to work. Counsel on one side or the other writes a letter of adjournment. What does the judge do? I was once in court in Lagos, and just when the court was ready, NEPA took light. The courtroom was very dark. And we all sat down in open court, waiting for the judge to come out. And then we had to send word to the judge that we were waiting. And it turned out the judge said, look, the place is too dark. We can do no work. So the point I am trying to make is that there are a totality of circumstances that can grind the wheel of justice to a halt. It's not a simple question of unwillingness on the part of the judiciary to deliver. You have to look at circumstances.
But is there any part of that in this policy? Does this policy address that to an extent that it affects the judicial officers?
Yes, when you look at performance evaluation, for instance, an indolent judge gets no sympathy based on this policy. If you have failed to write your judgment, for instance, within the 90 days prescribed by a section of the Constitution, there are consequences. It is now treated as judicial misconduct. Some judges have been sent home because of inability to perform. So if you look at the policy properly, it addresses declining productivity. And that is a phrase coming from as far back as Muratala Mohammed's time. It was a ground for sending some public officers home, at that time civil servants. So the way it works is you are put on your toes by this policy. You must perform or you go home. That is my take on it.
All right, Senior Advocate, let's take another aspect now. My question is going to SA and Awomolo. Appointment of judges and the corollary of forbidding judicial officers from accepting gifts, including, of course, the threat of examining your assets before and after participation in high-profile trials. There have been complaints, and we had senior advocates also here when the story of the raids broke first, and there were complaints about the processes for appointing judges, that they have become more politically inclined, rather than you looking for persons, in some cases, of integrity to preside over cases. Are we likely to get a roadmap from the policy with regard to appointment of judges henceforth, as well as dealing with the assets or possessions of judicial officers?
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. The issue of appointment of judicial officers, we need to understand there are two categories of judicial officers in this respect. We have judicial officers of the states. You have judicial officers of the federal government. The state committee, that is Judicial Service Committee, they will screen candidates. They will recommend to the NJC, and the NJC will examine them and recommend approval or appointment to the governor. For the federal, that is National Industrial Court, Federal High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, it is the responsibility of the Federal Judicial Service Commission, to screen candidates and process for appointment and approval. But let me say that this policy is built on the existing appointment policy and regulations. There's at the moment a very firm regulation that screens candidates from the moment of nomination. I am aware that at state levels, the Nigerian Bar Association, the civil societies are involved in the process of screening candidates qualified to be. The Constitution has prescribed who can be a judge, minimum of 10 years at the bar. But then, you can be 20, 30 years at the bar, and you may not be fit and proper to be a judge. What I think this policy has tried to emphasize is the need to really screen people of character. You know, for any judge at all, in my view, he must be a man of character. Even if he has very little learning, his character is what matters to me. And that's what this policy is trying to say, that for anybody to go through the screening, he must have that impeccable character that recommends him, you know, to be a judge. Now, if you look at the current judicial regulations for appointments and promotions, you will find that there have been now stages of screening by whichever way the NJC may prescribe. I am aware that the last process, they did written exam, which has never happened. They did written exam, they had oral tests, they did computer tests. In other words, for anybody to be a judge, he must be computer literate. In other words, he must be very versatile in the use of computer. He must know his law or her law. And two, he must be a man of character and integrity. You see, before 1999, the states were given free hand to appoint whoever they want and recommend and appoint. But these days, the NJC is becoming aware. You know, this is an evolving thing. Right. In many, many years past, you don't even apply to be a judge. The chief judge or the committee at the state will look at you, that's a man of character, because they see you every day. They hear about you every day. They know how you practice your law. Whether you are one of those who practice in sharp practices or who indulge in irregular and misconduct way of doing things, they watch you. And people will recommend you, and then they will invite you to be on the bench. You know the idea of the bar and the bench. Yes. At the bar, we are standing. When you are invited to the bench, you are made to sit.
Chief, I'm sorry, I have to stop you at this point because we really don't have much time. But quickly, my director, we'd just like to take a closing remark from Chukwuemeka Eze. Mr. Eze, of course, critics have pointed out the fact that the NDC does not have the power to investigate, just like the police and, of course, other, security agencies. Doing that will amount to ascribing powers to itself. Now, how do you speak to that?
Every organization has power to do internal investigation. NJC does not engage in criminal investigation. But in any case, if you talk of misconduct, and the Constitution has enabled it to conduct its own affairs. In conducting its own affairs, investigation cannot be excluded. In any case, when it discovers that the investigation, through its investigation, the judicial officer has committed a crime, definitely it will refer the judicial officer to the appropriate authority or handle the one within its own jurisdiction and leave the prosecutorial authorities to handle the other aspect. So when it comes to investigation, I don't think one can say that you give somebody responsibility and you will not give the person the tool to organize himself or itself. So the NJC has power to investigate. And we should know, by the National Judicial Policy, the NJC has what we call case flow management policy. We have judicial administration and court management policy. How will the NJC come to a conclusion that a judicial officer has not complied with these policies, performance rating policy, if it cannot investigate? So the people who are saying so might be saying so out of ignorance or might be saying so with regard to corruption. But before you can say somebody is corrupt, even by a prosecutorial agency, there's what we call prima facie case. the NJC doesn't stop other, like EFCC from investigation, but basically, before you can charge a judge to court, definitely there are steps. The NJC has to do its work. It has power of investigation, and I don't see any law that precludes it from even ministries, even companies. If there's allegation of stealing or something else, misconduct, you abuse the MD, they will set up a committee, a panel to look into it. If it is a police matter, they call in the police and hand you over. So, but it will still carry out that initial task of its internal investigation, and it lies within the powers of the NJC.
All right, Mr. Chukwuemeka is a legal practitioner. We'd like to appreciate your insights in our discussion this morning. You joined us from our Lagos Network studios.
Thank you very much.
Okay, just before we sign off, the other guests with us here at the Abuja studios, very briefly, there was the second leg of my question. Unfortunately, Senior Advocate Awomolo didn't quite touch on it because he didn't have enough time. Kalu, SAN, what's your take? Is the new prescription for assets declaration likely to be a curb on corruption?
Well, you know that things work differently in this country. Ordinarily, declaration of assets should have a bearing on how we handle corruption in the judiciary or corruption elsewhere. But it's always faced a number of problems. Some people declare in advance. You expect that, let's say in 4 years in office as a governor or as a politician or even as a judge, you declare 2 billion naira in your account. At the time you are leaving, you're also supposed to declare your account. But what about the follow-up? Ordinarily, when you declare your assets, there is a verification process. Because if I say I have 2 houses in London before assuming office, and nobody finds out whether or not, then within the time I am in office, I begin to take steps to justify the property that I have already declared. So we have to bear in mind that it is not simply prescribing declaration. When you declare, this public we are saying should be informed. We'll begin to say, this man is going to office to make money. If you have not declared a house, or you have declared only 1 car, or you have declared 2,000 naira in your account, you inform the public, they say, this one is a poor man. How is he going to be a judge if he only has 2,000 naira in his account? So we have to weigh all the options that come with it. Yes, declaration of assets, I support wholly and entirely.
It's like we've got some tweets. I don't know if we have time to.
Well, unfortunately, we are pressed for time. We'd like to thank our guests who've been with us on the program this morning. Emmanuel Owubiko is the National Coordinator of Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria. Mr. Owubiko, thank you for being part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then we also would like to thank Learned Senior Advocate, Chief Adegboyega Awomolo, it's a life venture. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you, Aaron. Good morning.
Okay, and also Senior Advocate Awa Kalu, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Just like that, we should also appreciate those who sent in their tweets.
That's correct.
But unfortunately,
we can't take those tweets right now because
yes.
we have a second topic that we'll be dealing with in the conversation this morning. NTA is organizing its annual Science and Innovation Fair, and then we have some guests who will be speaking to that after this break.
Who are you, and what is your predicament?
Please, I'm looking for Candy. Who is living here? In this compound?
Oh no, this is a premises. The compound is an amalgam of chemicals, and there is no Candy living in this premises.
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Funky Malam, Bimbo Akintola, Ime Bishop, Yomi Fash Lanso, MC for God.
Who was you? What was you found?
Auntie, look at you. I going to look for my sister. I know you are poor.
Yeah. He was found in the place. Call me. Okay?
Say somebody.
She's definitely not my sister.
Shut up!
Professor John Bull, fasten your seatbelts this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times. It's absolutely bombastic.
Over
and out. The largest data network, Glow, grandmasters of data.
We intend to radically change Newman Street. My company has a track record of converting slums into new cities. Many years of experience has taught us to fish out allies within the communities we want to transform.
Don't listen to your husband. Listen to me. Give me a boy. And the two of you may never even have to work again.
Yeah, sharp guy, how are you? What's your name?
Akpos. America.
Oh, Akpos, America.
One. Love it too.
Wonderful wonder. Wonderful wonder.
All right, thank you for joining us once again. If you've just tuned in, you're right on time for the second part of our conversation. And today we'll be looking at, or rather, for the past a decade or so, the Nigerian Television Authority, of course, has been organizing an annual educational TV science and innovation expo. Now, that event comes in two categories, and of course, it brings together young inventors from across the country, showcasing their scientific and technological ingenuity. Here is Omotala Mojola to give us a background report to start our conversation.
Beyond the display of intellectual brilliance and creative abilities, it has also been a platform for building strong relationships among children from different regions of the country. The federal government's campaign for diversification of a nation's economy finds expression in the inventions of these young Nigerians in this year's edition.
This year's entries are far better than last year's. They are fewer in number, but the quality has appreciated a lot.
And it's an opportunity again for the country again to be able to really help these kids to upscale whatever they have, vis-a-vis for those ones that are new inventions, to be able to really patent those available ones.
Every year, they present inventions that provide alternatives for agricultural development, renewable energy, and show great potential for the development of the automotive and aviation sectors of a nation.
There is one that really beats my imagination. It's simple, but at the same time, I think it distinguishes itself out from the others. And that one is called an automated irrigation system. Farmer does not have to be there. All he needs to do is program those the buttons, the several buttons there, and it goes to sleep, or probably to go and get to do some other things. It irrigates itself, and it has several sensors inbuilt. Once it reaches the water level, it switches off itself.
This project here is the most captivating, and this is a personal opinion, by the way. And this is so because this entry is a very, very common and simplistic situation. The boy who came up with this went round picking empty water shells, transforming them into a usable thing in the household.
10 years into this event that has provided a healthy competition among Nigerian students and pupils alike, how has the NTA ETV Children's Science and Art Expo fared? Join us in the second part of the program as we discuss the potentials of this expo for Nigeria's economic development.
All right, Mojola, thank you very much there for that background. Now we're being joined in the studios by the former Executive Director of Programs of the Nigerian Television Authority, is also the initiator of the expo, Malam Bello Sule. Malam Sule, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. Okay. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, and then we also have with us here Mr. Adebayo Bamidele, he's General Manager of NTA ETV. Mr. Bamidele, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Kingsley, I don't know, you remember how you felt in those days when you were about to defend your projects before a panel of your lecturers? Butterflies in your tummy? That's exactly how I feel now. I believe I'm about to defend all that I've learned. But very seriously, let me welcome my bosses. First of all, Malam Bello Sule and, of course, Mr. Bamidele. But let me begin with Malam Sule. This is your, it's your idea, it's your imagination, but I want to see into your mind.
Yeah.
What did you foresee when you came up with this idea?
Wow. I foresaw a Nigeria where children would grow up having friends from parts other than their own. I foresaw Nigerian children expressing themselves artistically and proving to their counterparts from other parts of the country and across the world how creative and productive Nigerians can be even at a younger age. And I foresaw solid contributions of young Nigerians into the development of the country as it moves from dependent economy, dependent perception of greatness, to asserting itself as the giant of Africa that we have been talking about.
Okay.
All right, well, let's get to the general manager of NTA ATV. 10 years on, you listened to Madam Sule a moment ago. Is the annual expo unfolding in a way that the vision that led to its creation is being realized?
Yes. I think I say that with a 100% yes. Why did I say that? There are no 2 years that are same. All our participants have always been fresh, just like the themes we treat. And most themes we have chosen, even from the beginning, addresses some societal problems, environmental problems, and the idea is to get them young. If you look, we have two categories of participants, ages 6 to 12 years in the first instance, and 13 to 18 years and above in the second instance. And so if you begin to sensitize these age groups to problems of their environment and how they profile solutions, I guess all of what we set out to achieve are being achieved.
All right. Let's be specific now, Kingsley, if we may, because of time. Let's go to this year's theme. Incidentally, it relates with what we had to discuss yesterday in agriculture, and this is having to come up with a technology, right, that will be adapted to, small-scale farmers, especially those in the rural areas. But the theme for this year is technological improvement and impetus for agricultural mechanization. Right. How do you see the events that you have seen today at the expo? How would you describe them?
Yeah, if you listen to one of the judges that was interviewed in that prologue, he said that this year the projects are a bit more advanced, that students have brought projects with better understanding of what theme we set out to be. And don't forget that the policy of government is to diversify. And where are we going? We are going to agriculture, we are going to solid minerals. The ones that is in control of the masses is the agriculture. And perhaps to solve problems of energy, which is a present problem everywhere in Nigeria. And that is the essence of choosing this theme. And the children have very well reacted. Some interesting projects you have there having to do with solar energy. There's a vehicle there that runs on both solar energy and gas. Where the solar energy is down, the gas picks up. And gas is derived from cow dung and chicken droppings and all that. So they are reacting to environmental things that are so ubiquitous around them.
This is an area that we thought was unattractive to young minds. Are you amazed at how they easily latch on to this the idea of being inventors in the agri sector.
You know, Malambele also mentioned that he foresaw in Nigeria where people are supposed to take the country from whatever level we are to the ideal stage of being the pride of Africa. Now, if children at this age are able to give you alternatives to otherwise things that affect society, there are projects there that have to do with non-fossil fuel generators and all that, and the irrigation system that was mentioned, they are virtually self-controlled. All you need is just to install the thing. It runs by solar and all that. I mean, it's amazing, therefore, that children at this age are able to do this.
All right, Mr. Bamile, thank you very much. Let's return to Malam Bello Sula. In terms of visioning, well, what we are seeing now is like an incubator. These are young minds, and you're seeing their creativity. You're seeing how they're seeking to also address current or prevailing challenges, whether environmental, scientific, or otherwise. Did the visioning also anticipate the next steps? Because as you may very well be aware, part of our challenge is that we suffer from a lack of follow-up.
Unfortunately, we foresaw this, and I'm afraid we are not getting to where we thought we would get to, because you can only go so far. You stimulate a child's imagination, comes up with something. It is up to the relevant authorities and relevant partners and stakeholders to pick it from there and make a difference out of it. I feel depressed when I get reports from, let's say, East African countries like Kenya. Some young person will come and do some slight innovation about wind turbine or an adaptation of solar power, whatever, and it gets so much promoted and so much support comes in. And you have a whole village celebrating the product of that young person because stakeholders have come in with assistance. Unfortunately, what is happening in our circumstance is that almost the reverse. After all the ceremonies, after all the appreciation, nothing happens. Then we come up with a newer thing next year, and then we park it to the side. Nobody gives it any more attention until another year. I'm sure for the past 4 or 5 years of this expo, you have had some outstanding products that could have been supported and could have taken the country to a higher level. It could have motivated many more children to do the same or better innovations. But unfortunately, that has not been forthcoming. And I think it says a lot about how serious this country is about self-development and motivating younger people.
Well, Mr. Bamidele, do you find this frustrating? And if so, what else do you think might be done by the educational services of NTA or trying to seek synergy with either industry or relevant MDAs?
Yeah, just before we came here, we were also sharing ideas. We will probably take this beyond the level that we usually would leave it. We'll be talking to the Ministry of Science and Technology. We'll be talking to SMEDAN and maybe NDE, where, who are also engaged in similar issues that concern society. I guess if we do that, and don't forget that the offshoot of this particular expo is the Young Inventors program that transmits at 5:30 on Mondays. It's almost a permanent belt. We've been on that. We are still going to showcase each of these projects in details as transmission for all through the year. And we expect that if people did not see this, even as it is, when we showcase at that level, we expect also that the people should get interested. But having said that, we will go beyond just the production, even though we are already overstepping our own mandates for existence, but we'll try and see if we report this. Maybe it might resonate with them this time around.
Okay, for 10 years, what is the level of participation among schools? That's on the one hand, are you seeing increase in the awareness, and then what's the attitude of the private investors?
That's exactly the pity, that people are not they are not exactly rising to it. Every year we have done a clarion call to say small-scale industries can have beneficial things from here that will aid their own transformation. Factories, manufacturers association and all that. We have always made this appeal. The unfortunate thing also is that, like Malam Bello said, in some other climes, people celebrate little achievements by young people. But in Nigeria, it's like we're on our own. I mean, in spite of all of the clarion call, nobody listens, nobody seems to want to follow up, nobody is interested in all of this. I don't know why. But again, we'll probably appeal to our news department to probably follow up with some of these inventors. If you remember clearly, one of the boys last year did something that is waste to wealth. He was using carbon materials like nylon, all these water bottles and all that, to produce petrol, diesel and all of that. That boy eventually went on the net and all that. He came in from Enugu and all that. So such people perhaps would advocate that our news departments in various states where they domicile should follow up with them and then encourage them and see whatever else new they are doing in addition to whatever they have brought. Okay. I guess if we do that, we should be getting somewhere.
All right. My last question for Malam Bello Sule will be this. Bottom line, almost invariably, will be respect for intellectual property.
Yeah.
Yes, young persons at this stage, as you are catching them young, at the same time, we're also instilling the idea of respect for intellectual property. Is this part of the agenda for the Expo?
Oh, definitely. Because when you help a young person to develop up to that level, more than that contribution, you need that support and protection for that capability to germinate and grow. So that if you produce some item, if you produce some innovative gadget or whatever, effort should be made to make sure that that thing is registered in the name of that producer, the copyright is protected, and whatever develops thereafter, the benefits should also be accrued to that inventor. And I think it's a very important thing to pursue. But most importantly is for it to be for the benefit of the country and for all hands to be on deck to make sure that innovation, that creative mind is further stimulated for the growth of the country.
I know NTA is not driving this alone, but the stories of some of your past winners that I've read up, and quite a number of them, like you rightly said, there was one that came up with a hydro, electric generating set some time ago. Right. There was also one that came up with a organic fertilizer processing, plant. Quite a number of them, but their stories is that of cries for sponsorship, either sponsorship for promotion of their project or sponsorship to further their education. Yeah. Now, have you reached out to, for instance, the education institutions to partner with you in this area?
Yeah, we have a few of them coming up. The boy I mentioned, along with two others, have scholarship to go as far as university level, offered by the Gregory University at Uturu in Imo State. Of course, the founder of Gregory University is the owner of Skill G, Chief Gregory Ibe. He's been our pillar of support even from the beginning. Such efforts we actually appreciate, and we are also calling on other institutions to follow suit. We have support, of course, from the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, like I said, National Mathematical Center, even the FCT. The FCT have been our hosts. They provided housing for and transportation for all of our participants, and they have done that also over the years. Yes.
So moving forward now, how do you hope to take this further? What are the improvement that you hope to bring onto this exhibition?
Well, like I already said, also we want to seek this partnership, take it to further levels, at least sensitize other organizations that are doing almost the same thing with us. Don't forget that the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology has a number of parastatals under them that should be interested in technology, improvement and all of that. RMRDC, NOTAP, and all of such. So we appeal to them, we reach out to them. Some of them will be here today at the grand finale, and we hope we can begin to cultivate them and make friends of them.
All right. Mr. Adebayo Bamidele, General Manager of NTA TV, would like to thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We also would like to appreciate the veteran, Madam Bello Sule, the retired Executive Director of Programs of the Nigerian Television Authority. Madam Sule, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, that does it for the second part of our conversation this morning. We'll go on now to our complimentary segments, and the first we're taking this time is sports stories on ping pong as well as the WTA finals in Singapore.
Nigeria's table tennis team has qualified for the mixed doubles final of the ongoing ITTF African Senior Championships holding in Agadi, Morocco. The pair of Segun Toriola and Olufunke Shonaike defeated Egyptian duo Mohamed El Bilhali and Rim El Iraq to advance to the final of the mixed doubles final. The Nigerian team will battle Egypt's Omar Azza and Dina Mishri for the title, according to the media release from the Nigerian Table Tennis Federation. The draw for the singles event will take place today, while final for the mixed doubles event will hold on Friday. And in the English Football League Cup fourth-round match, Joan Mata struck to win a tight Manchester derby as United knocked out Oldham City to reach the quarter-finals on Thursday night.
Ibrahimovic to Herrera, there's Mata! Goal stands!
And the Murray reached the S2 Bank Open second round with a hard-fought win over Martin Clayson in Vienna. British world number 1 Murray, 29, beat the world number 35, 6-3, 6-7, 6-0 to set up a tie with French world number 25, Gilles Simon. In Singapore, Slivana Kristinstova became the first player to reach the last four of the WTA finals following victory over Karolina Pliskova.
Right, and we'll move on to arts and entertainment, and Gufan Shaji tells us about the series of movies about to hit the cinemas.
The Three Wise Men is a dramatic comedy that humorously presents the follies of three aged men. The comedy stylizes the actions and intents of three elderly men in their late 60s who struggle to relive their lost youth.
New car on point.
After many years of service in different government parastatals, the three aged men are retired and they all settle in a suburb to enjoy their retirement benefits. How they decide to spend this retirement money remains highly humorous and dramatic.
What was that?
For the past